All right, it's
Excellent.
7:31. I'd like to call a meeting to order. It is Wednesday, September 22nd, 2021. We have a few new applications on the new business agenda. The first one is Northrop Road Development LLC, 55 Northrop Road, application residential site development of lot. Anyone here on that today? Okay. I was a little confused looking at the map, Chris, because the map.
Yes. Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I was having trouble.
Oh, okay.
My name is Ryan McAvoy.
Okay.
My name is Ryan McAvoy. I'm a professional engineer with SLR Consulting, and I'm here on behalf of the applicant. Let's see, turn my video on. Okay, there we go. There's me. Okay, so just a brief overview. This application is for lot number 3 in a subdivision that was approved by this commission back in 2012, and the permit has lapsed, and the owner of the property is looking to get the permit sort of renewed. So the plan you have in front of you is identical.
Whoa, let's just clear something up. What was approved was the subdivision. There was never a permit for the individual site development. So this is a new permit for the individual site development of lot number 3. Okay?
Thank you for clarifying. So the plan that you have that we submitted in support of this application is identical to the plan that was approved as part of the subdivision approval back in 2012. So I apologize for that I guess clerical distinction. And the plan includes a single-family house, includes a septic design, and stormwater storage in the form of a rain garden along the driveway. And there is no activity that is proposed in this lot that is within 100 feet of the wetlands. So there are no regulated activities proposed as part of this lot. All disturbance is a minimum of 130 feet away from the wetlands. It's just a fairly large property, roughly 7 acres and change, and a good chunk of which includes a pretty broad wetland area that was delineated by our firm back in 2000 and I want to say 2008 approximately. So that's a very brief summary of what we're looking for on this property. I know this is the first meeting where this is being received, I believe. And so I understand that the commission, may or the agency may want to, if they have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but I know they won't be able to act tonight. So I hope reasonably straightforward, considering it's identical to what's been reviewed before. I don't want to waste too much time on this if I can avoid it. So, is there any questions from the commission?
I have one question. There was a note there that talks about the sump pump may be needed for the footing drain discharge. But where is the footing drains? Where do the footing drains discharge to, as proposed?
The footing drain. If I could share my screen, I don't know if that's possible or not. I can pull it up, but if not, that's fine too. But so basically, what we have the footing drains discharging into the rain garden area towards the front of the lot.
Oh, okay.
So that they'd be along the same location as the roof leader collection pipe. But unfortunately, we cannot discharge by gravity. The only way to accomplish that would be to essentially daylight it right by the wetland itself, which we're not looking to get approval for. But we have done septic testing on this property, including some confirmatory pits recently with PVHD, and groundwater is not really a major concern, but we do have to have provisions for footing drains on the building. So some pump will be required.
How far down did you hit groundwater?
If memory serves, we went down about 6 feet before we had any evidence of groundwater. 5 to 6 feet on this property.
Hey, Chris. I mean, this this application doesn't involve activity in the wetlands. Is it something you think you're comfortable dealing with administratively, or do you think we need to actively?
Well, we've got a few issues in that the neighbors were never notified of the application being made, and the application fee itself was never paid. The only thing that was submitted was the $60 fee to record on the land records. And we never got an electronic version of the map to post on the website.
So you think it makes sense just to continue it to next month then?
Yeah, so that notice to the abutters can be made, so that the required posting on the website can be made, and so that the fee can be paid. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, the only other thing I found a little confusing is the application talked about 55 Northrop Road, whereas the map didn't really tie into that. You know, if there could be a reference to the lot 3 in the subdivision or something like that. But
Yeah, we
that's
really don't have
I can
a,
speak to that just because
Steven?
yeah, go ahead. I was going to say that we really don't have we don't really have a wetlands application for this particular lot. Correct?
Oh, you mean because of the fee, Jeff?
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, fee and
What we have is an incomplete application.
all right.
Bob, can I?
So
Yes, Steven? Yeah.
Hello. Yeah, I have a couple of questions, Bob. If you won't find it disruptive, if
fine.
are we gonna handle the application? I guess in this preliminary way tonight in any way, or are we gonna wait until? Because I guess I had some questions even before the application that would predate, I guess, the application. So if you'd allow me, so the cutting that occurred on the property, was that all 7 acres that was clear cut? Does anybody know that?
there are 3 lots that are there. And so the cutting that occurred was over 3 lots, not just on this particular lot.
Right, I'm aware of that, Chris, thanks. But I guess my question is, we're only talking about developing 1 lot in this application. I guess that's going to become official once it's paid and XYZ. But my question is, were all these lots clear cut? And all 7 acres? Maybe this is a question for the engineer representative. So what was cut out there? Was it all 7 acres? Or was it 5 acres? Certainly was more than just a lot 3.
the
Ryan?
okay, thank you. The area that was cut is primarily on lots 1 and 2, and the area that was cut on lot 3 is represented by the clearing limits we show on this plan. I believe the applicant was mistaken on what he was permitted and allowed to do, particularly on this lot, because this lot contains wetland.
Okay, so certainly more than 5 acres was disturbed. Is that right?
There was more that I don't know the exact acreage of what was disturbed now. And really the only soil disturbance was associated with the lot that's under construction. The other 2 lots were cleared. They haven't been grubbed, or they haven't been had any soil disturbance. It's just they clear the vegetation.
All right, but hang on. Those are all. Have you seen the property, Ryan? Have you been there?
I've driven by. I haven't walked it thoroughly.
All right. The entirety of what was clear cut appears to have been disturbed. I see open soil everywhere on the site, and that's no doubt what alerted the town. But I guess my principal concern is from an enforcement standpoint. And I come from another town where I was involved in a commission, and what I saw was somewhat of a practice by some, or it happened too often for comfort, was people often go in and do what they want, and it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. So I guess I wanted to rule out, is that what was going on here? So what contractor, who cleared this lot, and what was it that allowed them to do that in their own mind if they're professional site development. They don't, there's some level of professionalism. They should know that they're engaged in an activity that's likely to be a problem. How do you answer that, Ryan?
Not with a satisfactory answer, I'm sure. Because I honestly, unfortunately, the applicant was intending to come tonight, but something came up and he's unable to. So I can't exactly answer what they were thinking.
All right, so that I'm on,
Okay.
so that's out there. Chris, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I did. The upper two, the northern two lots do not require wetland permits. They're definitely not within any way the regulated activity. They have no wetlands on them. So we have no regulations within the town of Woodbridge that forestalls somebody from clear cutting a lot that has no wetlands.
But it's all one
So
property.
there's no-
This is, so it's, yeah, we can
No,
talk
it
about.
is 3 different lots. It is not one parcel.
Okay,
It is
good. Thank
3
you for
different
clarifying.
building lots.
Thanks for
So
clarifying.
they've got a building permit out for at least one of the lots, but this is the southernmost lot that was approved in the subdivision.
Very good. All
So
right,
they are entitled to do what they did. I've been out there in the rain. The only place water was running, frankly, was into the foundation that was poured on the middle lot.
Okay, good, thanks. So I guess just one more point I would make is you indicated the wetlands were flagged back in 2008. That's 12, 13, 14 years ago. Has someone been out there to confirm that those original wetland flaggings, if they survived all that time, are still indicative of the wetland delineation?
I couldn't answer whether or not there's any evidence of flagging still present. That is something we can look into in the next month. I suspect they're probably not there anymore.
Thank you.
So Ryan, if you want, why don't you reestablish the wetland flagging that's out there, and when that's done, you can let me know, and then the commission member or the agency members and or including myself can decide whether or not they want to take a visit out there.
Okay. And I would ask if we can limit the flagging effort to that particular edge of the wetland that's on the side of the lot, and not necessarily reflag the entirety of the property, because there's several areas of wetlands that are.
I would think the side that's closest towards where the development's going to occur, unless the agency members feel otherwise.
And the other thing I'd probably add is that you may want to just revise the clearing limit line that you have there, because it may not be accurate at this point. I've driven by there also. I'm not sure if more than that small area around the house has been cleared already. So you may want to take a look at that.
Thanks, Bob.
Agreed.
Just a question, really. Typically, when we get plans for approval, we have much more detail than what is shown here. Do we need that, Chris? Do we?
Frankly,
yeah, I'm sorry.
It's not what you normally get. You normally get a sheet that just shows the lot that's getting developed rather than the 3 lots being developed shown on one sheet. You're correct. So we normally get a more detailed plan. We usually have at least 2 sheets, one with the individual site development of the lot shown, and then a second detail sheet, with the standard details on sediment and erosion control installation,
correct.
the details on the rain garden and all that stuff.
I was just going to say the rain garden.
And I think our thought process on this was to keep it as simple as possible, and that we wanted to get approved or get approval for the clearing and the site improvements that are shown as part of the original subdivision plan. So we only provided the relevant site development sheet of the subdivision plan. We can submit the whole set, but I just want to make sure that the agency is aware that there is that the subdivision has been approved, the lots have been created, so that's not really part of this. I guess part of this discussion per se, but that was our goal, is to simply reestablish an approval for something that's consistent with what was on the original subdivision plan.
Well, I was going to say, typically it's something that we can go back to after it's built to determine that it was built as shown. But in this particular case, I see all three houses are in the same footprint. So I don't know if these are even representative of what's happening. They seem to be
Ryan, do you know
duplicate
if
copies.
what's actually shown on the site plan is indeed what they're going to be building? Because what we normally need is the actual footprint of the house that's going to be built, not a generic footprint.
Right. No, I understand what you're asking for. I have not had that discussion with the applicant as to what actual footprint they want. What we're trying to do is get approval for what's shown on the plan, and any deviation from that would be pretty minor in nature, if anything. But understanding what you're asking, I can report back to the applicant and see if they want to advance the plan to a point that would be perhaps more suitable for a building permit. But that I've not been given that instruction yet.
Ryan,
I'm sorry, it might serve you better just to have a map with just this one lot there rather than introduce the confusion created by showing it on the three lots. And I guess my other question is the test pit 9 area, is that the reserve that's shown on that's proposed for the septic system where test pit 9 is?
That's correct.
hey, Bob?
Yeah.
I want to completely support Jack's point that we need more detail to determine, to arrive at a decision on this application. Ryan, I don't think you appreciate the level of detail that is necessary for the Wetland Commission to be properly informed before it'll grant your permit. So you kind of have this dismissive tone about, well, the level you're asking for is more in the nature of a building permit, and you're just kind of showing this to, get the approval and then move on. But this is an important preliminary step in your development process. So, Chris, if you don't mind, I would ask you to, require the applicant to produce everything that any other applicant would under the circumstances, including sedimentation controls and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, what you have before you is not normally what we see for an application, because what we normally get is what's truly going to be built, and that's what gets approved.
So Ryan, Ryan, try to get ahead of the game. So Ryan, try to get ahead of the game and be prepared with some of this stuff before the next meeting, or your matter might be delayed. I guess Bob, you would tell me.
No, and I part of this is perhaps a communication error in that my discussions with the applicant were geared more towards trying to reestablish what I thought was a lapsed approval in terms of the subdivision, not necessarily to demonstrate a complete building permit plan. So my apologies for that, but we can certainly circle back with the applicant and talk about preparing a more detailed, essentially a plot plan.
Now, Ryan, Ryan, I've been dealing with Mylone and McBroom for more than 20 years, 25 years. I know John Mylone. They know what you need, and you should confer with them.
I'm aware of what you're asking for, but I guess it was a disconnect between the discussions the applicants had with the staff and what was conveyed to me. So that's we'll get that clarified on our end.
Anybody else have anything else before we continue this to next month?
No, other than there should be a legend on the drawing, but I'm sure you'll take care of that.
Yeah, I'm sure. When we get the revised plan, I'm sure that'll be covered. So, all right, then we will continue this till next month, and we'll see you then.
Great job.
Thank you.
Good night.
Yep. Thanks. Next item on the agenda, 1217 Racebrick Road application for dredging of pond. Mr. Grieger, I see you're on. If you want to unmute, then you could, we can hear you.
Good evening.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, hi, here.
So if you want to just give us a little bit, I read the application. If you want to just sort of summarize it, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, about every 10 years, we clean out the plunge pool and we're silted in the neck of the pond. And the area to the north of the pond, we spread it out and seed it with quick cover, put hay on it. It's basically a day job. And if any of the riprap with this heavy rain has been moved, we'll bring in a little bit and touch it up back to where it originally was. We're not digging it any deeper. We're not making it any bigger. And the area that we've done this 2 other times, you know, as far back as 20 years on that north, where you see the X's, there's enough room to put it there. We make a little bit of berm from the material that was dug out, so it doesn't run any farther than what was raised over the last, 20 years. And it's a day job and we're in and out. It's just the Kaplans, I give them a lot of credit for keeping up with the pond so it doesn't keep silting in.
Yeah, I've been on here long enough to remember one of your last ones. So,
I made these 2 ponds. I should be retired. I was a kid.
Yeah, we we appreciate the fact that you typically do good work. So, does anyone have any questions? Like I said, I've been on here long enough to see this at least once before, maybe even twice. I can't remember now. So, Stephen?
Yeah, I have to applaud the applicant for adhering to the regs and notifying the commission. And I love when these maintenance practices, work and are, paid for and happen. And I just wonder what's done, Mr. Grieger, I guess, or Bob, the town previously. What effort is there to try to? What about the invertebrates or the life in the pond? What effort is there? Is there an effort to do it in particular months when I'm not quite I always wonder about that. We take a clam bucket of 7 yards of muck, but that's important stuff there. And I guess, is there some backstory to any of that? Is that a non-issue?
See, what there is, when these ponds are designed, there's a plunge pool, and the plunge pool is designed to trap the settlement. So it doesn't, so you're limited to the area, and then the material is spread out. It's still there if there's any, vegetation or anything in it. Nothing gets hauled off.
Okay, so this is only maintenance in the plunge pool.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. This kind of reeked of dredging a pond.
Well,
right.
It's a fair size. Well, it's a little bit bigger than the typical plunge pool, but the intent is to capture the sediment before it ends up in the river. And we appreciate the fact that the owner isn't looking for the town to do this instead has maintained the plunge pool over the years. So I can let Mr. Grieger address that more carefully and correctly, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I'm totally in favor of it. So yeah, I think that I have a clearer picture of it now. So yeah, thank you.
No, and I will contact the wetland enforcer and so forth. We make sure that we have a few days with no rain whatsoever before we go in there. And we start early. It's a day job. The machines are out, the quick covers, the hay's on there. And like I said, we watch the weather and make sure that we have the approval of the day that we're coming that is acceptable with everybody in the wetlands.
Yeah, we typically have, tried to do this during a dry season, but lately there's been no dry season anyway.
Yeah, I don't know if this season will work the way we've been having the crazy storms.
So, I mean, we can't technically approve it tonight because it's just been submitted and it's activity in the wetlands. So we'll have to continue it to next month. But
okay.
at least from my perspective, I don't have any problem with doing this as it's been done in the past. So other people can voice their opinions. Yeah, Chris.
I'm sorry, I'm not in the office, so I don't have the file in front of me, but I think that the submission date for this was such that there was actually a receipt date that by statute had to happen because we didn't have a meeting in August.
Oh,
So I believe that you can act on it this evening.
I see a
Okay.
June 9 stamp on it.
okay. So yeah, so therefore, technically we can act on it. And, you know, to be honest with you, I'd rather approve it and give you the flexibility to pick a time where it's not raining and not overly wet to get the work done, rather than wait for another month for us.
It's okay by me. As long as it's kosher. And Chris said that
Yeah,
it was,
no,
so.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Because of that, you know, interim where we have no meeting, we had a receipt date that's already occurred. So you could
Right.
act on it this evening if you so choose, because you do have to act on it since it is directly in a wetland itself.
Right.
Or whatever.
Well, if that's the case, and people seem to be in favor of getting this done, or at least getting it approved so it can be done whenever is an appropriate time. We have a motion to approve the application subject to the applicant and Chris coordinating a proper time for it with proper safeguards. And
Yeah, I will make that motion to approve the application for
Okay.
Chris's involvement.
Anyone want to second it? Steven, you want to second it?
David.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions? Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess there's 5 of us, right, Chris, if I'm counting correctly?
I can't see who's here.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's Stephen, Dave, Jack, and Barry, and myself. Oh, okay. Well, we have 5 at least who have verbalized, and Dean's trying. We'll have the record.
I need IT help.
So we can't hear Jean at all, is that it?
I heard Gene.
I thought I just heard her.
Yeah,
Oh,
I can't tell whether I'm mute or not mute. But
No,
you're on now, that's good, okay. How did you vote on that, on the 1217 Rose Pond?
well, am I needed to vote? Because don't you have the full 5 with,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, yeah, you're right, okay, I'm sorry.
Yes.
yeah,
So we're
that's
all
why
set.
I stayed quiet because of that, but I'm listening.
Okay, thank you. All right, so that's approved, Chris. Sorry about the confusion.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Mr. Grieger.
Thank you. Good evening.
All right, we'll see ya.
All right, next item on the agenda, Southwest Conservation District, the Amity High School invasive plant proposal. You have the floor.
Thank you. Thanks for the time this evening, members of the commission and Agent Sullivan. My name is also Chris Sullivan, so that hopefully won't be too confusing. And I'm the executive director at the Southwest Conservation District. And just a little bit of background about what we do is we're a 501c3 nonprofit natural resource and conservation organization. We do work with sediment erosion control, invasive plants, watershed planning, outdoor recreation, greenways, things like that. Before I came to the district, I was working at DEP for 11 years in the Water Bureau, doing water monitoring, review of remediation, site plans, and watershed planning. And my coworker at the district is Melissa Mostaway, who's also on the call. She was a hydrogeologist with Fuss and O'Neill for a couple years and is also a certified high school science teacher. For the project that we're working on at Amity, we're also partnering with Allison Bears-Nork, who's the AP Environmental Science teacher at the school. And just a brief summary of what we're proposing to do is there's some areas at the school where there's invasive plants that have grown, which is common in a lot of places in every town of Connecticut. But what we're going to do is teach some of the students how to identify some of the plants and then actually go to those areas and remove the plants from those areas around the school, only using hand tools, no power tools, no chemical herbicides, and not even like digging anything out of the ground. This is mostly going to be a cutting and bagging operation. The materials will be bagged and put into a dumpster at the school. And I shared a couple of aerials that kind of highlighted the area that we're proposing to work in. It doesn't look like I can share my screen, but I think everybody on the commission received those aerials. There's is a small, what appears to be stormwater drainage ditch nearby, and areas that we're planning to cut plants is definitely in any upland review area for that ditch. We don't plan on disturbing the soil. Like I said, this is a cutting and not uprooting anything. Trying to think if I missed anything. The plants that we're targeting, there's a stand of Japanese knotweed that we're going to cut, and we are probably going to put a tarp over that then to solarize the cut plants so that they don't grow and get more sunlight to put energy into the rhizomes for the plant. And then the other section, which is upland of the drainage ditch, is bittersweet, autumn olive, and a lot of mugwort. So we're just trying to get those invasives under control and let the native plants that are there have a better chance to thrive. So the reason I'm here tonight is I believe that this could fall under the regulation 4.2A of your regs, the conservation of soil, vegetation, water, fish, shellfish, and wildlife as a permitted non-regulated activity. So I'm hoping that the commission agrees with me and can make that determination that this project would be a non-regulated use over at Amity High School. And I'd be glad to answer any questions from any members of the commission.
Good, Stephen.
Yeah, you know, I'm so I can't be more complimentary of the program. I'm so delighted to hear that the younger folks are going to learn about this stuff and how to properly address it. Sounds like you've thought of a complete around a plan that is intelligent, because you know, at least with regard to the Japanese knotweed, it's so pernicious. Even a tiny fleck of it, as you know, affected people are advised to not even weed whack it down. A fleck of it will start a whole new forest of it. So you know, I couldn't be more in favor of the program, and I couldn't be more supportive, I guess, of the benefit to the wetland areas as a result. So very good.
Thank you.
Chris Sullivan, the agent. Do you have any comments?
I feel like an FBI person. Jeez.
I love it.
I think it truly does fall under the 4.2A, and I would strongly encourage the agency members to find that it is an activity we can proceed without a permit.
I agree also.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Can we make use of your crew other places in town?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, once the students are trained, they'll be able to identify these plants anywhere. And honestly, this is something that we do as the district. So if there are other places in Woodbridge, you know, we'd be glad to walk those sites with members of the commission or
all over
Agent
the
Sullivan.
place.
Yeah.
Everybody's yard. Everybody's
Gladly
yard.
show you where.
We'd be glad to come out.
Okay, terrific. Have you had any success in using goats by any chance? Because I know down in Edgewood Park in New Haven, they at one point had some goats that they were using to gobble up some of the Japanese knotweed and invasive.
Yeah, we haven't tried anything with livestock, but I've seen where other groups have used goats, and also for poison ivy. The goats will eat poison ivy as well. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, they eat anything. You just kind of have to pen them into a little area, and there it goes.
I guess the problem is getting them to stop once they start eating things.
Right.
All right. Yeah, because I don't think we need to just have a consensus that it's non-regulated.
No, you need to make, Bob, you need to make a formal motion to have a finding that they don't need a permit.
Okay.
I think it's under section 4.4.
Okay. All right, then. Do we have a motion to find that the activity proposed is not regulated?
Yeah, I'll so make that motion.
Thank you, Jack. Do we have a second?
Yeah. I'll second. This is Dave.
Oh, Dave, second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, you're all set. Thank you very much for your efforts.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll be glad to share some photos of the work back with the commission through Agent Sullivan.
That'd be good. We could put it on our website, Chris.
I like my new name.
All right. Thank you again.
Great, thanks.
Have a good night.
Have a good night. All right, moving right along. Wolf Tree Drive. I see Mr. Esposito is on here. Any update?
To
Sure.
respond. Hello, sir.
Hello? Oh,
Um,
sorry.
and Attorney Pellegrino asked me to text him when we were ready to take it up. So if I may do that right now.
Sure.
Thank you.
Anyone up for an anecdote during this downtime on goats? I remember about, I don't know, about 7, 8 years ago, seeing maybe a New York Times article about the problem of blight in the city of Detroit. A lot of the houses were demolished and the lots were laid fallow for years and overgrown. And a fellow started a business. He'd bring a herd of goats to the lot, and the goats would eat all the vegetation on the lot, and then he'd move them on to the next paying customer. But so this guy had teams of goats running around Detroit, including under contract with the city to cut back these properties. So, and it was a national news event. So it was very, I still amuse myself thinking about it.
That's interesting. Thank you.
All right, sir. I texted Attorney Pellegrino. I think David Ward is joining us, and I know he has the remediation plan. And I think Attorney Pellegrino expected David to present it to the panel for consideration. So, if I may, I'll continue to try to get a hold of Bernie so that he can sign on. He had another Zoom at the same time, so he was trying to coordinate the two of them. But I'm sorry. Yes,
Yes, I
he is.
am.
So if it's all right with the panel, if David could go ahead and start to prepare the plan, or start to present the plan rather.
Sure, I'm sure David knows more about it than Bernie anyway, so.
It does. They agreed on that.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
If I could start just by introduction, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, staff. I am David Lord. I'm a professional soil scientist and environmental consultant with Soil Resource Consultants. I've prepared a restoration plan, which I hope the commission has in front of them. I'd like to go through the plan, discuss the steps that we are proposing to take to remove the overlying layer of fill. There's a ridge of a mound of wood chips in the affected area and reestablish native vegetation within the affected areas. Christine, is there a way you could show the plan?
I have no access to my computer.
Oh, okay.
If you can share, can you share your screen, Pooh? Have you, Pooh, all the way on the right, there should be a little green ball up by your name, and you just move it, you pass it down to David. Okay. It's in the list of presenters or panelists. You should be in there and you should be able to click on him and move it down. Okay. So then, David, you should be able to share your computer screen.
Okay. I'm in the process of trying to load the file. I wasn't prepared for that part of the process this evening. Let's just start and see how it goes. Um, file.
I don't even see the materials on the website, by the way, as part of the meeting
This
materials.
is very old, Stephen.
Okay.
This goes back
Yeah, I know
to
it's been
last
around
year.
for a while. Yep. Yep.
Let me ask a question. Do the commission members have a copy of the plan in front of them?
No.
I do not.
Is this the
I don't.
original? Is this the original one that you submitted back in December, David?
No, this is the August 8th plan.
Oh.
No, I don't have that.
They
I
may
thought
not
that
have
was-
that one.
No.
Okay. That's gonna be,
That could be a
because
limiting
I was
factor.
under the premise that it had been submitted. Let me see. Oh, wait a minute. I might have something here.
Yeah, if you have it in a file, the share button should let you open up
Yep,
that file.
I'm getting, I think I'm going to have success here in just a moment. I have not been sharing a file from my computer. There we go. Yes. We have, does everyone see the plan?
I see a white screen.
White screen.
Very little detail in that plan. There we go.
There we go.
Any change?
Yep,
Yep,
I got
I
it.
see it.
Cover
Base
sheet.
Okay, yes, the cover sheet has a date of August 8th of this year.
Yes.
On the cover page, there is a photograph of the site. This is a east to west depiction of when we did the testing with the backhoe to determine the depth of fill material overlying the original wetland surface. It gives you some example of the existing condition. It has not changed much at all in the interim from the time when I was out there originally. Bottom of the photograph, you'll see a wetland flag. It says actually in the pink flag there, wetland delineation. That's an area whereby the deep test holes, we established the limits of the existing underlying inland wetland extent on the properties. The properties we're talking about are 15 and 21 Wolf Tree Drive. A additional property, which would be located to the south, is owned by the Woodbridge Land Trust. We have had a surveyor go out and establish the common boundary between the subject properties and the Woodbridge Land Trust properties. The Land Trust has been sent a copy of the restoration plan, which I am talking about this evening. They are have verbally agreed with the plan and the implementation of the plan. We don't have anything in writing from them yet. If the commission wants it, we could certainly get it. But we have, through Attorney Pellegrino, established a rapport with the land trust and reached their concurrence with the plan that's before the commission this evening. On second page, wetland and URZ upland review zone restoration. Basically, what we are trying to do is take the area as it looks there in the photograph and move it to help reestablish the existing underlying wetland and upland review zone to distances that I'll be talking about in just a moment. Taking all of the fill off of the land trust property, reestablishing woody vegetation and herbaceous ground cover in the areas that were disturbed on the land trust property. On page 2 of my report, and I'll put that up.
Okay.
If there are questions during my presentation, please feel free to ask them. I will pause. I am attempting to get this there's page. I had to find the next page down on my screen with this. Again, I'm learning as we go. Okay, there's page 2 of the restoration plan. It shows a visual representation. The red circles are the corner points and pins that were the corner points and stakes that were established by land surveyor to define the limits of what the surveyors identified, and the area of the disturbance is shown in the blue to purple color crosshatched in this area. Does everyone see the mouse moving on this area?
I can see the area. I don't see a mouse.
The arrow? Do you see the arrow moving?
No.
No, but
Okay. I wasn't sure if that was going to show up or not. Then I'll do it visually. This is the area we're talking about this evening. The house locations, the existing house locations on those 2 lots is shown in the sort of tan color. You'll see the proximity of the disturbed area that is wetland, and we are proposing to restore. The areas to the right or to the north of that blue lined area are also disturbed, and those will be vegetationally stabilized, further extending up to closer proximity to the rear of those houses on lots 15 and 21. I've established. Yeah, go ahead.
David Steven Sosensky. David, tell me, are the wetland flags? Do they seem to track that 460 contour line?
In general, yes.
Okay.
Now, what you are looking at is a town GIS map of what the area looked at the time the GIS map was in place. Obviously, the site does not have the same contours and elevations in it today. It appears it's close to the 460 contour, but that determination will be made in the field by myself as we begin to peel back the layer of fill and the layer of wood chips from the area that we're restoring. So this is a depiction of the general extent of the restoration work, but it will be field determined to make sure that we get all of the underlying wetland uncovered.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, on page 3 is a detailed construction sequence. I will go through this in some detail, and others I will just mention. If you have any questions about any of the individual elements, feel free to ask a question. The pre-construction meeting is very important. That's the first step before we do anything on the site. We're going to meet with town staff, myself, and any party that's involved with either the removal of the overlying fill and or the vegetative restabilization of the sites that we establish surface contact with. The extent of the proposed restoration will be marked in the field. We'll put additional stakes referencing the existing stakes to know the limit at which we believe we will be extending the restoration work outside the wetland boundary. But again, that may shift based on field determinations as they peel back the overlying fill, expose the wetland surface. We will make determinations of, have we gone far enough or do we need further extension of the restoration work to the north? There are, item 3, there are some silt socks, sediment type barriers out on the property. Those need to be realigned now that we have determined where the restoration work we believe will extend to. Those barriers will be properly installed, kept in a good working condition until 70% total ground cover conditions are reached. That will entail the proposed woody vegetation that we are proposing to plant into the site and the ground cover seed mixtures, which we are using in various portions of the restoration area. Item 4, we're going to begin at the land trust property. That is the low-lying area or the lowest lying area that we are restoring. And we're going to move in a general northerly direction toward Wolf Den Road with the work. At certain times during the restoration and removal, interim or intermediate layers of sediment barriers with silt socks placement will be done. I will oversee that and determine whether they where they need to be placed during the excavation work. Item number 7, fill removal will then proceed in an easterly manner to points that are a minimum of 25 feet outside the wetland boundary edges that are exposed in the removal of the overlying fill material. Item number 8, SRC, that's me, will approve the extent of all excavation and grading before work can continue beyond or the culmination of excavation and removal activities before we start any of the vegetative work. The test borings, and I'll just add this now, the test holes that we dug with the backhoe on the site determined that the original wetland surface layer, the topsoil layer of the wetland, is still there. Removal of the overlying fill material will uncover that surface layer of the original wetland surface and the original upland review zone area outside of the wetland boundary. So we're going to uncover that, utilize the existing topsoil materials that are on site and do the vegetative work, the trees, shrubs, and ground cover seedings that will be done at that point, which is listed as number 9 in the sequence. Item 10, again, all bare soil areas will be seeded with the appropriate mixture, which is included in the later in the plan. Once the area has been totally, excavation is finished, everything is planted, everything is seeded, I will perform a final completion inspection and will certify in writing to the Inland Wetland Office and Town Hall that all proposed restoration work has been completed. And lastly, we will provide post-completion inspections will be performed by SRC. Will prepare written reports along with photographs that will be submitted to your agency by October 1st of each of the 3-year period post-completion of the vegetative work on the site. It's important to note only native species indigenous to the local area will be used for the proposed plantings. We have 3 planting areas which have been established. You'll see those in just a moment in plan view. Planting area A is associated with the disturbed land trust area to be restored. This area will be somewhat separated from the Wolf Den Road parcels because of the fact that it is a different entity that owns that particular property. We're beginning there at the end, or if we have reached the limit of their property, that area will be isolated from the rest of the site, and we will do the plantings and seedings within planting area A before we move on further into the site. Planting area B is associated with the remaining portions of the restored wetlands and the upland review zone areas located east of the well, it's towards Wolf Den Road. I have east. It's hard to tell because Wolf Den Road sort of curves and it's hard to get an exact direction, but it'll move away from the land trust property towards Wolf Den Road. Area C is associated with the upland review zone beyond and above area B. That area will receive a special low to no maintenance seed mixture seeding, which will extend a minimum of 75 feet beyond the limits of planting area B. In general, what we're establishing is an upland review zone that will be 100 feet in width along the entire edge of the on-site wetlands on these 2 properties. And those will be designated as no maintenance, no mow, seed mixture, and maintenance long-term. New plant materials will be used. The goals of the plantings are listed there. Species, we're using 3 species of trees, again, native species. There will be 20 trees planted into the land trust property, 30 trees planted within the restoration area. In addition, we have a listing of shrub species. There's 2 additional tree species that will be planted also. 10 red maples on the land trust property and 20 white pine, which will be planted on the outside edge of planting area B, again, which is the outside out of the wetland in the upland review zone, in that 25-foot zone, out from the wetland edge. Then we move to the shrub species. There's 6 different species, again, all native, all berry producing, all very hardy species. We're putting in 50 shrubs to the specifications here on the land trust property and 60 of the shrubs on the remaining upland, wetland and upland review zone area of planting area B. There we go. Okay, when the plants are arrive at the site, I will conduct an inspection of all the plant materials, make sure that there's been no obvious signs of transportation stress. There's no significant breakage, that the trees have not withered or been left out to dry out. The root balls or containers have not dried out. Those types of factors will be determined. There's tree spacing, there's shrub spacing. The intervals will be kept in the areas of the proposed plantings. Permanent vegetative stabilization. This is from the 2002 Connecticut Erosion and Sediment Control Handbook. It is a permanent vegetative stabilization. It does provide a quick stabilization of the site. It will be further augmented in just a moment with the other seed mixtures, but this one is done to give the site quick stabilization of the disturbed areas. Finally, we've gotten to the depiction of the 3 planting or seeding areas for the area. Again, this depiction is a general reference, beginning point, if you will. These lines could change, possibly significantly, based on what we uncover with the removal of the overlying sedimentation or the sediment layer on the property. You have to excuse me, the pauses are, my mouse does not seem to want to work tonight. Okay, permanent cover establishment, the growing season. That can be extended because of Woodbridge's location in Connecticut to the end of October. I've actually performed these types of operation into mid-November with seedings and planting of trees and shrubs with no mortality of any of the plant materials. Obviously, if we choose to do the plantings outside of the October 15th deadline, that still falls under the post-completion monitoring, where if there is any die-off, it will have to be replaced. Temporary vegetative stabilization. As we're moving through the site and we clear the fill from a particular area, we will put a temporary vegetative stabilization mixture, usually annual rye or winter rye. This grows at an accelerated rate. Germination is usually within 7 to 10 days maximum. It gives us quick ground cover stabilization of the previously uncovered wetland and upland soil surface. It has a 1-year lifespan. After it's grown and done its job, it dies off and becomes mulch or additional biomass on the surface of the restoration area. Wetland seed mix will be used in the land trust property, which is planting area A, listing of general species which are in the New England wetland plant bags when you buy the wetland seed mix. Second mixture for planting area B is the New England Erosion Control and Restoration mix. This is a grass and wildflower mixture that generalizes restoration areas that are generally moist, including wetlands and the adjacent uplands. Recently disturbed sites are a prime focus of this type of seeding mix for quick growth. Again, quick growth, vegetation stabilization to hold the surface that's just been uncovered in place. Lastly, the seed mixture for planting area, the seeding area C is the New England Conservation Wildlife Mix. This also is a mixture of grasses, but it also has forbs and wildflowers and legumes that will provide a long-term stabilization. The legumes, for those of you that know, generate their own nitrogen fertilizer in the soil. It's a third layer of vegetative stabilization for the areas that we are proposing to restore. Fertilizing is a standard in my restoration plans. We will be collecting some soil samples to see if the underlying soil material is fertile and can be used unamended. If it is of adequate fertility, we will not be adding fertilizer to any of the areas that we are proposing to do. Generally, the wetland soils are of a sufficient natural fertility that fertilizing is not necessary. The upland areas vary from site to site. Mulching is going to be applied over the surface of the restoration area. We're also going to add a 4-inch layer minimum layer of wood chips or shredded bark in a 3-foot diameter around each of the trees and shrubs that we're planting. That will provide a weed barrier until those plants get established, are taller, and help with moisture control as they continue their grow in of the vegetative portion of the plant. Page 8 is the maintenance and monitoring. I mentioned this before. We'll be performing inspections on a schedule of 15 days, 30 days, 60 days, 6 months post completion that first year, and annually for years 1 to 3 out from the completion of all plantings. Inspection dates are going to be adjusted seasonally based on the normal growing season. That 6-month inspection may take place in the spring of 2022, depending on when we actually get the plant materials installed. There is a minimum threshold survival of 80% for all of the tree, shrub, and ground cover species. Beginning at the first annual inspection, that 80% threshold must be met, or we will do additional plantings and seedings in order to elevate existing plant populations above that 80% threshold. Invasive species are going to be controlled during that 3-year period for the grow-in of the trees, shrubs, and ground cover vegetation. This is a list of some of the species. It also includes Japanese knotweed, which isn't in this list. Oh, it is in there. I take that back. Excuse me. All of the recognized invasive plant species recognized by Connecticut will be controlled during the grow-in and post-completion monitoring to avoid the establishment of any stands of those particular species. Next paragraph, we're going to keep all temporary erosion and control sedimentation structures in place in and around the restoration and creation. We're actually reestablishing wetlands with this measure. And until that 80% threshold is established in the restoration area, those measures will provide an extra layer of protection for areas outside of the restoration areas. And lastly, a written report, mentioned this before, will be prepared by myself to document the monitoring inspections. Written inspection report along with photographs of the project site will be forwarded to the Woodbridge Inland Wetland Commission by October 1st of the first year as we're completing the 15, 30, and 60-day post-completion inspections. There'll be a documentation of that, and then annually for the three years post-completion. Some of the things that the post-completion inspections will show. And lastly are some samples of the erosion control restoration mix from New England Wetland Plant. I found them to be very, very hardy in the seed mixtures that are used by that particular supplier. We have one for the conservation wildlife mix, as described. The species that are generally in the particular bag of seed on an annual basis, that can change on a year-by-year basis. What I do is I collect the delivery ticket off of the bag of seed and make a copy of that, and that's submitted with my post-completion inspections, which gives the commission an idea of what species were actually established on the particular area that we're working on. You have quantities in per bag, price, and an application rate for the materials. I believe that one, wetland seed mix. That's the one that's going into the land trust property. Same information, same source, and the species that are generally included within that seed mixture. That concludes an overview of the restoration plan. That's all I have to physically or verbally present at this time. I'll be happy to try to answer any questions that the members may have at this point.
I guess my reaction is that it sounds pretty thorough, and I guess that's why it took so long to get to this point. Appreciate the effort put into this.
Well, not only this, but we had some delays in the surveyor availability to get the corners marked so that we could determine exactly whose property was where. So that was part of the delay in addition to my part of the process in getting this restoration plan together.
Yeah, I would agree. It seems very thorough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree too. Yeah, comprehensive. You definitely know what you're doing.
Yeah, David, again, like everybody else, very complimentary, very thorough plan. I've seen this before from you. But I do have some questions, just a couple of things.
Sure.
Is there any plan to notify the landowner through some signage or so at the wetland area? Because it looks like it's going to be a flat property all the way to the wetlands. So is there going to be any signage about?
Yes, we're planning on putting up, and that we were going to discuss with the commission, a post, and we believe you have medallions that go on the posts that will be spaced at 50-foot intervals around the outside edge that we establish.
All right, so I didn't see that. So that was.
I didn't put that in the plan. We can add that by letter to the plan if the commission would like that in writing.
Thanks. And then I had a few other points. The property appears flat, but will slope toward the wetland, and it looks like there's going to be a large lawn in the back there. And from my understanding, my recollection of the neighborhood is the lawns are well manicured and such. Is there any care? Is there any care been taken with respect to the plantings that are going to be located at the bottom of the slope of the lawn? Because if the lawn is fertilized or herbicide is applied on it, that's all just going to sheet flow back into the wetlands. So has there been any care with respect to intercepting those loads into the wetlands with plantings or some other physical?
Yes. First off, The site is very mild sloping. As you get closer to Wolf Den Road, it gets steeper. But in the area we're working, and especially the underlying area that we've uncovered, it's relatively flat. The area and the site has been in place for a significant period of time, and very little real erosion and sediment transport has occurred on the site. The purpose of the upland review zone plantings that are in planting area B and C is to provide a vegetative filter strip between lawn areas and the wetland that we are restoring.
Very good. So I see you're going to be reporting annually on the success of the plantings, and I wonder if that's too infrequent, because we could lose a whole planting season if we find something isn't right. Then I heard you say you might be doing that. That's possible to do planting in November, which I think is kind of a rare event. So that's another concern I had. And then there's numerous places in the plan where you are the one who approves substitutions, and I wonder if that's something we, as the commission, feel comfortable just delegating back to the applicant. So those are just a few of the. And then one other thing is, so not only does the applicant decide substitutions, but you indicated that substitutions are going to be possible if there's an inability to obtain any of the species. And what's been your experience these days? Do you anticipate any difficulty securing these species? So those are some of just a few of the things I had as notes.
I'll start with the last one, and if I miss one, remind me. As far as substitutions go, very, very seldom when I work with New England wetland plants or local nurseries do we have to make substitutions. The substitutions are in kind, similar indicator species designation. They are berry producing, wildlife beneficial, and hardy stock that's put in to the plant materials. None of the trees or shrubs there are easily stressed or difficult to grow, have a history of dying off. I've done some studies myself. I'll just digress for a moment. Some of the plants that are in this plan, I've literally taken off of a site where we're creating compensatory mitigation area for a roadway crossing. And I've literally pulled a plant out of the ground by hand with very little root, well, whatever root came with it, dug a hole in the creation area, planted it in the creation area, covered it obviously with additional soil, and monitored and checked its growth. They grow. They are extremely, extremely hardy. I don't think substitutions will be an issue because we're going to one of the main suppliers in the New England area for wetland plants like this. We have a number of local nurseries that also have all of these materials. They're not hard to find, rare type species. They're plants that are used all the time with this type of work, are called for all the time, and are usually on hand in just about any place you want to go to.
Thanks.
Again, if they aren't, and we do have to make a substitution, I can certainly check with Christine about that and make sure that we get a sign off on that. I don't expect that to be an issue, but if the commission would feel more comfortable with me conferring with Christine before we make a substitution, I'll be happy to do that.
I think that would be a good idea if you could add that to your report. So
sure.
Your plan.
David, normally with a plan like this, there's a bond that's posted to also ensure that everything gets done.
Yep.
And that the plants get done. Do you have I don't have the document in front of me, nor could I see it. Is that something that you can provide?
I can
To the
work up a
commission.
plan. I can work up a plant cost, relatively easy. What we're gonna have to do is talk to, contractor, uh, get a quote from them once they see the plan, and then we can include that, with a little, comfort zone, in a bond estimate. Uh,
Okay.
In
And then we
general,
can have
we have
someone
an
review
idea.
that.
Yeah, that, we can certainly do that, earth moving
Okay.
cost. While I'm thinking of
And
it,
that's typically a bond that we hold for the 3 years. You know, and initially it's a higher bond to ensure that the plantings are originally done, and then it gets lowered to ensure that any die-off is replaced appropriately.
yes, I was just gonna mention the suggestion that normally these bonds get reduced over time, because they have a large number in there for the earth moving, activities, so that they get done according to the plan. And then we look at the vegetation portion, the bond gets reduced, and then finally released after the 3-year period. So that's,
Correct.
something that we're aware of.
Okay.
Okay, I had one question, or I shouldn't say question. I had one response to Commissioner's question about the planting inspections. The inspections are done intensively the first year. The second year, I generally go out the beginning, well, I shouldn't say the beginning of the growing season, late May, early June, to look at the plantings and see how they're doing. In the event that there is a die-off or a patch of the seeding didn't take or kill over winter, I would recommend, or I would immediately contact the, in this case, applicant or landowner to get the work done. The October 1st submission to the town is just a deadline that you know you're going to get the plan inspection by that date. You will in all likelihood get it before then.
Bob? You know, I don't,
Okay.
you know, this is interesting. You know, maybe this is an academic point, Bob, but you know, I guess the suggestion is to approve this remediation plan, but we don't even know what the extent of the wetlands are because they're still covered in soils. So, I mean, I don't, you know, I guess from a procedural standpoint, I mean, are we approving a plan based upon a presumption of the location of the wetlands and things like that? Or what happens if when David goes out there and the wetlands are different than what's been anticipated by this plan? Is that some issue?
Hey, Chris, the assumption, excuse me, regarding where the wetlands are, is that based on town wetlands map historically, the historic information in town wetlands map, or I know David had said it was, some of it was test pits, but yeah.
Well, as David said, they did go out and they actually dug test pits to give a rough approximation of where the wetland boundary was before all the work was done. As he's also stated in this plan, if that moves back, because as they're pulling the material that's overlaying, you know, that was filled over the wetland and comes back, then obviously the wetland restoration area will shift accordingly, as will the upland review area that will be reestablished to protect in between. So I don't have any issue with, I don't know how else you would do it. I mean, you'd have to be approving something, pulling back something. I mean, we're far more in advance of where we were than a year ago when this first came into us.
Right.
And I think as long as you have a bond in place and we have a plan that's there, and David's involved and I'm going to be out there, that I think we'll be okay.
Yeah,
Commissioner, just to add, item number 8 in the construction sequence describes in somewhat detail how that process is going to do. I'm going to be watching the excavation and uncovering of that underlying material, that underlying surface, to the extent where I see the wetland has now changed to upland. Wherever that is not based on anything that's depicted in my plan at the present time. That is done in the field because there's no base map available that you can even use as a reference for any extent of wetlands. Certainly not for what we're proposing to do here in reestablishing a covered up wetland. So, Christine, and again, I envision that Christine and I will meet on this site a number of times during the excavation and removal of the wood chips and the overlying soil material. And we will look at and agree with the depiction of, yes, this is where the wetland stops and uplands dominate, beyond which we will begin the upland review zone establishment. Because again, it's conceivable the wetland may go lesser extent than I have depicted. It could go larger than I've depicted out in the field when we start uncovering.
I have one question, if I may, and that is, you don't have a bid on this work yet. Now, let's say the bid comes back and and the landowner says, I don't want to spend that much money, cut it back. What do we do? What happens? What's the process?
Are you asking me or asking Dave?
Yeah,
I'm asking.
Who are you asking?
I'm asking everybody. I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously, this is not a $500 plan. This is, I would imagine, multiple thousands of dollars. And I don't know what the landowner is expecting this to cost. But let's say it's double what they had projected it would cost. What do we do?
This is an enforcement activity.
Okay.
And so if they have failed to do that which you have approved,
okay,
then you proceed with the enforcement that you can proceed with, which is basically to go to court.
Okay.
Well, I think there's a more practical and immediate remedy for the commission too, is once we approve it, nothing's going to happen unless a bond has been instituted. So if there is some default, we'll call it, or a failure on the part of the applicant owner, then we would also have access to those bond funds to complete the job jack. So I think that's another avenue of remedial course that the town could take too.
Okay.
But let's make sure that bond amount is reflective of the plan and such.
Right. So the question is, do we approve this before knowing what the bond amount is, or do we wait until we have the bond amount?
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm struggling with, because normally we'd wait for a bond calculation, but I hate to lose another growing season to get this thing behind us, and I also don't want it to become extremely expensive for the applicant, not only paying for all this that's going to be done, but then also posting a bond that's very high to cover the cost of what's going to be done. Even though I recognize the fact that it shouldn't have been done to begin with. The applicant's been responsive and working hard and spending money trying to get the situation corrected. So that's.
I guess I would also ask, what do you foresee is how long does it take to do this work? Is this days, weeks, months? A few days, a few weeks?
This is David. I would figure on weeks at this point. That's the best I can give you. I don't know the number of pieces of equipment that are going to be brought on site and how they're going to work the site. That's the variable that I can't, but this size area, this amount of fill, you're looking at weeks. You're certainly not looking at days. You're looking at weeks to take it. But again, the plan is going to stabilize in place as we move from the land trust property in the direction of Wolf Den, Wolf Tree Road. I'm sorry, I'm also working on the other name, a site with the other name that I keep trying to interject into the description. So when the land trust property, for example, is finished, we've removed all of the overlying material. The vegetation work will be started on that. As that is finished, we'll be moving into the on-site for 15 and 21, moving in that direction towards the roadway for a extent of time, probably between 50 and 100 feet, where we would again put a interim sub area stabilization in place and begin the vegetative work so that we can vegetate as we go. It's somewhat akin to the reverse section of you're building a 25 lot subdivision. You don't go in and clear all 25 lots at one time and then start to look to build. You're going to restore this in sections as we move from the low end to the high end.
Well, no, I understand that. Given the order of magnitude of work, it seems like we need to understand what the bond's going to be before we can approve this.
Bob, when you expressed that legitimate concern about, having the property open and wanting to recognize the cooperation of the, the ownership group, we'll call it, were you talking, let's drill down about your concern. Was it that a month would be lost if some action was taken in that meantime to determine the amount of a bond, or were you concerned about this whole season? Was it a month or the season, I guess, that you're focusing on when you raised that concern?
Well, if we let it go another month, then we would be.
You think that's the season?
Grows in the growing season, yeah. I mean, the other option is that we could always have a special meeting once, in a week or 10 days, once we had an idea what the what the cost would be, so what the appropriate bond would be. I just really
can we split the baby in half? Can we somehow figure out a way to sever off the work to be done on the land trust property while any of the other work for restoration on the owner's property, that bond amount can be calculated? So is there a way we can have our cake and eat it too? Have that area stabilized and the work proceed this year, but still hold back on so much that we would have some leverage, or not allow anything to take place that wasn't covered by a bond? Just a thought. Are we overcomplicating this?
Yeah.
Bob, one thing I would mention is at this point, we do not have a written consent from the land trust, and I think that is required because the application is actually involving their property, and their signature should also be on that application or in some form indicating that they are acknowledging that work is going to be done on their property.
That's a good
point. No, that's true. Mm-hmm.
Well, that maybe that's the opportunity we'll have to get the work done on the bond amount and secure the consent by the other property owner, the trust.
David, do you think you can get an estimate done in a week to 2 weeks?
I would think, oh yeah, within 2 weeks for sure.
Okay. Then perhaps what we do is we do what Bob suggested and have a special meeting And then at that point, that would allow Attorney Pellegrino to get a signature from some representative from the land trust so that we have a legal right to also go on their property to, inspect and have you do the work, and then go from there.
And I would also suggest that you consider, just the report, not just to the town, but the land trust probably would want that report also. And that way, they could monitor what's happening on their own property also. So.
Yes, I will include that in the planting plan document.
So
Seems like that'll tie up the loose ends, and I think or at least I think that's the best way to go. And we'll do the special meeting.
I'd rather get it all done at once and not have something after the fact that we have to deal with. But David, do you think it'd be 10 days, 2 weeks, 7 days? What
I was going to suggest is that the applicant, Dan, do you have an idea of when this bond estimate can be completed with the contractor?
Yes, I can speak with the contractor and have him provide a written estimate to David. Yes, I can do that.
And when do you think that would be? Is the week to 10 days sufficient time for that?
I believe so. Yes, I think the contractor will help me. Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
I heard that. Hello, Bernie.
Hi. Sorry about that. I was having trouble with my audio. I've been here most of the time. I do have emails from the land trust, but I can get something more formal about consent to perform the work. So that wouldn't be a problem, and I'm sure I can get that within a week to 10 days as well.
Bob? Go ahead, Stephen.
No, I think I interrupted Bernie. I'm sorry.
That's right. Go ahead.
Well, I was just, Bob, you you make an excellent point about your concern about the property just continuing to remain unremediated, but it's not like the wetlands are being impacted. They're under a foot of soil at least. So it's, maybe we don't have such an exigent circumstance here that we have to rush to get an approval out because the wetlands about as degraded as they could be, and it can't get any worse.
Yeah, I guess my concern isn't that the wetlands will get worse, but that the situation still won't be resolved and we'll miss the growing season. It's really the growing season part of it that's my bigger concern. We've been talking about this for a year almost at this point, so it's be good to get it off the agenda, and I'm sure Land Trust would like to get it resolved too at this point.
And so would the neighbors.
Yeah. I think we all would.
Yeah, and I'm not being critical. It's just there was a combination of things between pandemic, surveyor, and just circumstances that caused the delay. And it's a big restoration project, so we that also contributes to it. And I guess the other thing I'm concerned, I'm almost less concerned about the cost of the contractor doing the excavation, but I'm from my perspective, I'm more concerned with the cost of the plantings and coming up with a proposal where, once the plantings are done, X amount of the money of the bond is released, and then it fades off over the 3 years. Because like I said, I don't want the property owner to have a ton of money tied up for 3 years on this thing. So David, whatever reasonable proposal you think can address those concerns is something I'd be interested in. So.
Okay.
I have that in my notes too, Mr. Chairman, and so David and I will work on that to kind of have it phased in the bond estimate so that there'll be benchmarks that hopefully you can acknowledge as we get the work done and move from work done into maintenance.
Chris, what do you think about timing as far as noticing another meeting and that? Should we just do 2 weeks?
I just need basically 48 hours this is something that if, you know, you guys are available for an earlier meeting, a 6 o'clock meeting, I'm just trying to bring up a calendar so I can see what the heck we're looking at for dates. I'm working off my Kindle. This is not the easiest way to do a meeting. So today's the 22nd. I have planning and zoning at 6:30 on Monday, October 4th. Do you want to run with a meeting on Tuesday the 5th? Does that give, Bernie, does that give you enough time to do what you need to do?
Yeah, I'll say yes, but my work is minimal. But I think based on what Dan and David had said, I would think that's enough. It's like what,
It's a little, it's almost 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think we'll be good.
Anybody else have
Oh,
any
I just-
scheduling conflicts with that?
Good for me.
And again, it'll just be one of these WebEx things that shouldn't take too long, hopefully, so.
And
I gotta
I'll
figure out how to
actually
get my
be in the
camel
town
booking
hall.
by then. That'll be the
Maybe.
hardest part for me. I'm
So,
disappointed
do you have a
too. I'm wearing a
preference
tuxedo over here and you're not getting the benefit of seeing me all dressed up.
Oh, okay. Do you, on that Tuesday, do you want to do it at your normal time of 7:30?
It's fine with me, unless somebody needs to be earlier.
Fine with me.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, because I actually have a Cub Scout meeting from 6 to 7, so
Okay.
I'll wear that hat too.
7:30 would be okay then for you, Chris, or would
Okay.
7:30 work
All
then
right.
for you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, why don't we go with that, and on the 5th at 7:30, hopefully it'll be a short meeting, and we'll just be able to get this moving, so.
Great
Okay.
job.
Okay, unless somebody else has something else to say, let's move on.
Thank you.
Thank you very
everyone.
much.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any correspondence?
You up to doing minutes?
Pardon me?
You up to doing minutes or no?
Well, if there's any correspondence or enforcement officer stuff we need to talk about, we could do that first, but minutes, there's one. we have to fill in minutes.
Nothing enforcement wise that I have to tell you.
Okay,
Well,
all right. And, might as well go to the minutes then. Julian, you already always have something to say on that.
I only had one question.
okay.
On page 2, the paragraph before the 3 bullets on the bottom, there's a, and it's only because I don't know what it is or I don't remember what it is. There's an N/F.
Oh, that's now we're formally.
Now or formally.
Say again, I'm sorry.
Now or formally.
Ah, okay.
That's old deed jargon, land deed jargon.
Yes, it is. Anybody else have any other comments? I went through them. I didn't find anything. So
No, that's the
Yeah.
only thing. That's the only question.
Either.
Yeah, look good to me.
Look good to me.
I'm waiting for Gene.
I know.
Although you can send me any corrections you have, Gene.
Yeah, I did not find anything.
Okay. Well, then there was nothing. If Gene didn't find it, there was nothing to find. So.
There was nothing to find.
All right. Then do we have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Thanks, Jack. Do we have a second?
Second.
Stephen? Okay, Stephen. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Okay. Those are approved. Chris, do we have anything else we need to talk about?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Anybody else have anything they want to say?
I think the commission's very high functioning. I'm so pleased to be serving with you all. Thank you.
Oh, we thank you for your input too, so. Barry, you're still on here, right? Nobody's.
I'm here.
All right, well, we appreciate everybody's efforts, and hopefully next month we'll be back to in person. We'll see what happens, so.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, it's 9:16. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Jack. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second. This is
Barry,
Dave.
come on.
Oh,
I give it to Barry.
You gonna let me get in the box score? Okay.
okay, Barry second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. All right, Chris, we delayed your dinner long enough. Hopefully your husband's not starving to death. So.
No, he ate. He's fine. Now he's just waiting for peach pie and ice cream. So.
Okay. Save some of that for our next in-person meeting too. So.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Have a good
See you
night.
all at the special meeting.
Yep.
Good night.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Good night.